Hey guys, welcome to the 8th video of Module 1, and this is the second video on GitHub where I'm going to show you first of all how you can initialize an empty Git repository, then how you can start adding files to that Git repository, and once you are finally happy with all these kind of changes, how you can commit them. And after that, let's if you want to create a GitHub repository and have a connection between your local Git repository and to that GitHub repository, then how you can establish that connection so that you can start pushing these changes from your local Git repository to that remote GitHub repository. Now, let's say, for example, if you're going to have any kind of changes directly onto your GitHub repository, it's not going to reflect on your Git local repository. So how you can pull this kind of changes from your GitHub repository to your local Git repository. So all of these things are going to be covered in this video. And this is by far the most important video of this module because we are going to highly use all of these kind of things as we progress in the upcoming few modules. So let's get into it. So with respect to this first step, I want to find out a location on my local system where I would like to create this empty folder. So I'm having that location where I would like to create that folder. So over here, I'll be having this right click on my mouse, go to this open in terminal. I'm just trying to open this command prompt over here as you can see. I'll simply do CLS enter. It's going to clear all of the screen that is having already. And we are having this completely fresh command prompt in front of us. And now I'm going to make a directory in this particular location and call it as testing. And I can do this with the help of mkdir, that's make directory. And the name of the directory is testing. I'll hit enter. Now I'll just refresh this part. And as you can see that this directory has been created. Now, if I want to go inside this current directory that I want to work in, I'll need to use this particular command over here called as cd, that is the current directory, and that is testing. So now as you can see that I am inside that particular directory, and now we can go ahead and add these two files on top of that, and that's where we come to the second step. Now if you are using Mac OS, you can go with this commands, and if you are using Windows, you can follow along with me. So this type null, what is it going to do? It's going to create some empty files for us, and then you can simply go ahead and give some kind of name to it. Like literally you can go ahead and create any kind of dummy files over here because that's not really important for now. It's just for you to understand that how in the upcoming few projects that you will be seeing, you will be having this kind of files. Then how you can actually create a Git repository into your local system. Then how you can connect it with the remote repository on the GitHub. All these kind of things you're going to learn right now, right? So for that, I'm having this demo files, and I can create the empty files with the help of this type null and then this symbol. And I'll be writing test.py. And again, I'll repeat this code by simply pressing the upward arrow and just change this file to some different file, that is demo.js. And again, click enter, or I should say again, hit enter, not click enter. But yes, anyways, I just refresh this particular location. You can see that both the files are now ready in front of me. So the first two steps are now done successfully. So this is the type of folders that we'll be working on as we go ahead in this upcoming modules. You will see that how you can convert this thing into a Git repository into your system by simply following this code that is git init. So let's see the magic of it. Let's go to this command prompt and write git init. Now one thing you need to just keep in your mind is that you cannot run this git command unless and until you have installed it into your system. So make sure that that's the first step that you're doing it. Now I'll just hit enter. It says that initialized empty Git repository in this particular location. So if I just refresh it over here, you can see that as a hidden file, it's showing me this .git. Now that's what has been initialized, and without using this git init, you cannot even start doing anything. So it would be your first step if you want to create a particular directory into a local Git repository. That's going to be a first step. Now, once this is done, you don't need to do this step again and again. You can start following the next steps. The ones that you will be using now and then would be this git add dot. Along with that, it will be git commit, and along with that, it will be git push and git pull. These are the frequent commands that you will be using as we go ahead into this upcoming few modules. All right. And now let's just go step by step. First of all, what we have done, we have created this empty directory, inside which we added some of this demo files. And now that particular directory that we had created is now initialized as a local Git repository. Now what I'm going to do is, whatever changes that I've done over here, these are few files that I've added over here which I want to confirm that I want to add into my GitHub repository. For this, what I need to do is I want to add all of this kind of changes into my staging area. I can do this with the help of git add. Now after add, I can have any kind of file name that I want to have in my staging area. Only those files will be added into the remote repository. So because I want to pass all of these files, I'll be using git add with this dot. This dot basically confirms that I want to add everything. If I change this to only demo.js, it's only going to pass this particular demo.js into that GitHub repository after following the upcoming few codes, right? But now because I want to add each and every file, I'll be using this git add dot. So I'll follow this command git add dot. And over here, just to check what's really happening, I'll also follow this particular code, that is git status. So it's going to give us the status of your working directory and the staging area basically. So git status, as you can see that the default branch that we are having is main, and you will be getting this as master if you have not followed along with me while installing Git into your system. But if you have followed the steps, then you must be seeing this main over here. And after that, it's saying that there is no commits yet. Changes to be committed are with respect to these two files. That both of these files are currently into your staging area. This is the type of confirmation that you are having, that now after this particular staging area, I am going to make some of the commits. Now these commits are going to ensure that it's going to be pushed into the GitHub repository. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this commit. Now I'm going to use this git commit -m. This -m basically stands for the message that I want to write during this commit process. Now this commit is going to be one-liner maximum. You will be writing as short as possible. Be a little bit descriptive, it's completely fine, but whatever kind of changes that you want to add to your GitHub repository, you can have with respect to that one-liner, some kind of text with respect to that. And now what is this going to do? It's going to permanently record the stage changes into Git repository. So the first thing we are going to do is with respect to this Git repository, and later on we are going to push this kind of changes to the GitHub repository. So I'll be using git commit -m for the message. You can write any type of message. Let's say this is my first ever commit, something like this, and then press enter. It says that there are some of the modifications that has happened over here, and now with respect to that, what's going to happen? This is yet not sent to the remote repository that is on the GitHub repository. Everything is happening only in your local repository. So now there is only one step that is remaining, through which you can connect this Git repository to your remote GitHub repository. Now how you can do this? For that, you will have to go to your GitHub profile. So I went to github.com, and this is the dashboard that I'm seeing once I log in into my GitHub account. And I can now click on this create repository. And now I'm having some of these options that I can choose in order to create this repository basically. So as you can see that the owner is Spartificial Udemy account, and the name of the repository could be literally anything. Let me just call it as demo. And over here I can give some of the description if I want to, but I'll just leave it for this particular case. Then the next option is to keep this particular GitHub repository public, or you want to keep it private with yourself. So both of the options are there. I'll be keeping it public. I want anyone in the world to see this. And after this, there is also an option to add a README file. I'll be adding it a bit later, not right now. I just scroll down and create this repository. That's it. And now you can see that your GitHub repository is almost ready. I just need to perform some of the steps over here through which I can connect my local Git repository to this particular remote repository on GitHub. Now, just one thing you need to keep in mind is the main branch that we are having on our system is called as main, and the one that we are having on this remote repository is called as origin. Just keep that in mind. Now, the first step that we are going to do is git init. Now, you must realize that these are the kind of steps that we have already performed, right? So, git init was done. Now, the upcoming two steps is something that you will also realize that this is familiar because we have also performed this. That is, we have done git add and dot. That dot meant that whatever are the changes that we have done, whatever are the modifications that we have done, we want to pass it to that staging area. And then we just finalized all these things by doing this kind of commit and also pass the commit message over here. And after that, because we have already performed these first three steps, the fourth step is this one. Now I am again repeating this thing that if during the process of the git you have not chosen this particular option, by default it will be for you the master branch. So yeah, you can just go ahead and run this particular code into your command prompt and set your branch as main if it's not already set to main. All right. And after that, these are the two new things that you are seeing over here, which we need to apply before you will be able to see any kind of your local Git repository changes being reflected on this GitHub repository. So the first thing would be to just copy this particular code and simply paste it into my command prompt over here. Now what this is saying, this is simply saying it's going to establish this kind of a connection of your local Git repository to this origin remote GitHub repository. So after I run this particular code, I can now simply go ahead and push this kind of changes from my local Git repository to this GitHub repository. I can do this with the help of this command. I'll copy this one, again go back to this command prompt and paste it over here, which says that now I want to push whatever changes that I had finalized over here. Where do I need to push it? I need to push it to this origin, which is actually your remote GitHub repository, from this main local repository. So this is something that you are basically doing, and you are setting this kind of thing which you call as upstream. Now you just require this for one time if you want to work with this particular branch. If you will be changing branch and if you want to push some of the changes, then you will again have to run this particular code. But all of these things you will realize as we go ahead, so no need to worry about it. For now, just understand that we are trying to establish this kind of a connection of this local Git repository to this GitHub repository. And whatever changes that we had performed in our system, we want it to be synced with this GitHub repository. We are performing this particular step. So just hit enter, and it should give us some of the summary of what are the kind of changes it is able to do over here. So before that, it's giving me this kind of an option to sign in into my GitHub. So I'll just perform this step very quickly. I'll sign in with your browser. All right. And I'll just minimize this one. So it says that remote permission to Spartificial denied to Rohan Calculus. Now this is because I'm going to change this git config global user dot name to what? Spartificial Udemy, and click enter. And along with that, I'm also going to do this for my username. User email. I'll set it to instructors@spartificial.com. And now I try to push this kind of changes. Hopefully it's going to work. If not, let's figure out how we can do it. Alright guys, so the problem was with respect to that during the authentication process, I was already logged in into some different account, and therefore I just logged out from that particular account, and I hope it's going to work now in a proper way. So let me just go ahead and write git commit. Oh, commit is already done. I need to push upstream. I'm going to set origin main. And this time it's going to pop up that particular screen of sign in. I'll click on that. And yes, now this time it's asking me to give some kind of username, right? So I'll say Spartificial Udemy. And then the password that I'm going to give is, I'm not going to say sign in. it says that Git credential manager by Git ecosystem wants to access your account. And yes, I'll just authorize Git ecosystem. You are being redirected to authorized application. All right. I'll also open that thing over here. It says that enumerating objects 3 done, so everything is working now. Counting objects 100%, 3 out of 3 is done. And all of these things are basically saying that branch main setup to track origin main. So if I just go ahead and look into the status, what is the current status? Nothing to commit, working tree clean. So what it basically means is that if I go back to that GitHub profile, you will be seeing that whatever changes we had on our local system is now being reflected on that GitHub repository. So here is our GitHub profile, and I'll just click on refresh. And as you can see, our repository is completely ready. We are having the name of this repository as demo. We are able to see this demo.js and test.py. And over here, because we had performed this commit from my different account, that's why you are seeing this particular name over here. So don't need to worry about it. In your case, you will be having your own username. It should have been Spartificial Udemy. But now at the time while I had performed this kind of commit in my actual system was with respect to this account, and therefore we are seeing this over here. And it's completely fine. A lot of different kind of collaborators can contribute into one repository. That's the reason you're seeing my name over here, right? But yes, that's something that I really wanted to show you that yes, this is your GitHub repository that is ready. And over here, let's say if I want to add this kind of README file, and in this README file, let's say that I'm adding some of this information that this, I'll say this, welcome to my first repository. Click on commit changes. I can do this kind of commit changes directly from the GitHub if I want. And over here now I have added the readme.md file over here. Now can we see this kind of changes in my local system? Let's go ahead and check that out. So I'll open this one, and if I refresh this, I cannot see any kind of changes. Why? Because I have not yet pulled this kind of information from my GitHub to my local system. And the way that you can do this thing is with respect to this command prompt, where you can write git pull. Now obviously I can write origin main over here, origin main. Now the reason I'm not writing this whole origin main is because we have already set up this upstream to that particular thing. So it automatically understands it without writing it again and again. So now what's going to happen, it's going to say that all of these kind of things are now pulled into your system. Now if I go back to that particular folder and refresh this, and you can see that now we can see this readme file over here. So yes guys, that's about this particular video. We won't be going into the branches part in this one. I'll be creating a separate video for it because the video is pretty much already long. But to have a quick revision, what we have done is the first 2 steps were used to create this directory in which we added this kind of dummy files, which eventually got converted into a Git repository. This directory got converted into local Git repository. And after that, whatever kind of changes that we had done over here, we added to that local Git repository, and then we checked the status of it, where we understood that this kind of changes were successfully implemented. There are 2 additions of the file in that repository, and it's ready to be finalized with this commit message. And therefore we went ahead, passed this commit with some of this commit message. And after this was done, we went to the GitHub profile, created a GitHub repository, and after creating a GitHub repository, we saw that these 3 steps were given to us: init, add, and commit. Now these are the 3 commands that you must know on your fingertips. We will be using these 3 now and then, all right? And after these 3, there were 2 more, or I should say 3 more lines of code. One was with respect to setting your current branch to main if it's not already on main. So if I can show it to you right now, what is this git branch? You can see that it's already main. So if for your case it's master, you need to run that one more code that was given to you while creating your GitHub repository. But if it's already in main, then you can go ahead and pass this particular command, that is git remote add origin and whatever is the link to your repository. So it's a way through which you are going to create this GitHub remote repository with the name origin given to it. By default, that's what it happens, right? Every time it will be origin. You can try to change this over here. It's completely fine. Now, once this kind of connection was established about the syncing process of my local Git repository with this GitHub repository, I simply went ahead and set up this upstream for this origin main. So every time if I have to do any kind of push or pull, now what is push? Whenever you have done something on your system and you want to pass it to your GitHub, you want to push something over there to the remote repository. Now, what is the pull? When there is some kind of changes done on that remote repository, that is the origin one, that is the GitHub one, if you want to have some of the changes from that repository to your system, you are pulling some things from that and syncing that changes with your local Git repository. So that is called as pull. Now, in both the cases, you will need to set this upstream to origin and whatever kind of branch you are working with. And once this is done, you don't need to again set it up for the next operation on that same branch. You can always do some kind of changes and push your changes and pull your changes, whatever it is. It's completely fine. I had also demonstrated this at the end while pulling these changes after adding the README file manually on the GitHub profile. So yeah, that was with respect to that. And there was some kind of a problem that we had faced during this kind of a process of logging. And that problem was with respect to that I was already logged into my different account. And the final thing was to do git pull without origin main. Okay, origin main is not really required. If you use it, there is no problem with respect to that. But because we have already set up this upstream, even the git pull is going to work without origin main. So this is something that we have done so far. Now in the next video, we are going to go ahead and set up some of the extra branches and see how we can do this kind of merging and create this kind of pull request and everything. So just stay tuned for that.